What we will share here is the index of 2020, and what we can say, this is now a quite consolidated index to measure quality infrastructure in developing countries and developed countries. And this is also interesting that this index brings all worlds of quality infrastructure together. And as we are working in development, it's also good to see that developing countries are part of a broader context. I want to start to summarize what I call the essence of the Global Quality Infrastructure Index and the report, highlighting some aspects. First, and this was already mentioned, before we had no quantitative benchmark to measure quality infrastructure development internationally, and we see different efforts in the last years. Barbara mentioned the stock-taking document for Pan-Africa, and also the joint activity with PTB and the World Bank with a rapid appraisal. What we have done is to give a global overview based on publicly available data. And I think this is what makes the difference of this index, that we can use the data which is available, which creates also a limitation because we are depending on the quality of the data which the accreditation bodies, standard bodies, and Metrology Institute publish. What we see also that publishing these documents, this gives an incentive to the bodies themselves, and probably the colleagues later can refer also to that, to improve the data quality, because we see a lot of possibility to improve data on quality infrastructure. What we saw before, that this data was mainly connected for internal purposes and to show that some conformity assessment is accredited properly, but not for statistical use. And I think these studies, what we are doing now, show the necessity and the opportunity that these data can also be used for other purposes, like for highlighting the significance of quality infrastructure and the importance for trade and development. And what we also saw in the index, that the components of quality infrastructure, what was also a newly coined concept, are still quite separate. And we need, when we're working with quality infrastructure as a system, also to work that the data are more interoperable between the areas at the global level, like we did it, but also on the micro level. And I want to quote in this context the work what several metrologists, also led by PTB, are doing, working on the digital calibration certificate. These movements are quite strong. What we, for example, discovered, that even the naming of the countries in the different areas of quality infrastructure following different procedures. ISO is following the ISO principle, but the accreditation bodies and by BIPM have other naming of the countries. This was first for us one challenge to standardize the names of the country, and this is only the tip of the iceberg of necessity to bring or to make data comparable. What we think that this index can provide information to different stakeholder groups. And first of all, well, we think of the QI community themselves. We think, and Ron Josias will refer to this later, that these data can help the quality infrastructure bodies in developing countries, but also in developed countries, to navigate and to forecast where to go. And I think evidence-based quality infrastructure strategizing is needed, and it can be also used, and this is the second group, to convince policymakers to invest in quality infrastructure and to sensitize them that this area is really important to work with. We see also the whole community of trade policy professionals, and we have one of us here with Andrea, the whole WTO world, to highlight also the importance, because we know now that the non-territorial measures are much more important in areas of free trade, and we have to highlight, or can highlight by this, the contribution of quality infrastructure to globally free trade. We think also, and we did the first correlations, but there's a lot more to do, that for social researchers, there is a lot to do. We are also in contact with MIT and Harvard, they are working on the product space, and it's quite interesting how we can connect the data of quality infrastructure to bring them into this discussion about economic development and trade in science. And last not least, and Barbara, I think she explained this very well, for international development cooperation, it's very important also to be informed on a broader picture beyond the specific project, how the scene of quality infrastructure is evolving, and therefore this kind of data can be a good orientation, or give a good orientation. Highlighting the unique features of the Global Quality Infrastructure Index. First, it's a pure index. It's only about QI. We have a lot of composite indicators like the Global Competitiveness Index, or transparency, or failed state indexes. This one is only about quality infrastructure, and I think this is an advantage, because it makes this index comparable with other indexes, and is therefore somehow unique. The other principle is that we are only working with publicly available data from the QI bodies, and therefore, as I mentioned before, we are depending on their quality and also the accessibility, but this makes also this index very strongly related with the QI community itself. What we have done, and this is the third element, we curated the data, because the data in the current stage is not always comparable and aligned. Therefore, we did a lot of checks, and we asked, for example, all accreditation bodies of the world, more than 200, to validate the data which we have collected from their websites. What we have also done, and this is the next element, the formula. We worked a lot of the formula, and Juan will explain also the evolution of the formula. We validated the formula with experts from the field, and we learned a lot about each number and each indicator. And I think this interaction was also quite fruitful, and we think that this formula really reflects in a very good way the level of the development of the components and the whole quality infrastructure of each country. And the other thing what we did with this index is we did a lot more on writing around the whole explanation about what is quality infrastructure about, also the historic evolution of this concept from ancient time in China and Mexico and Egypt to the recent history from the Meter Convention in the 19th century till the new developments of quality infrastructure 4.0. I think it's important also to work on the qualitative elements, because the numbers alone and the ranking alone can be misleading. Therefore, we highlight also the importance to bring the qualitative information into these reflections. One of the outcomes is the map of the global data of the Quality Infrastructure Index. And there was already a question in the question answer session about why we choose these colors. It's not about that the colors fit very well with the logo of Mesopartner and Analyticar. We choose not to use the traffic light because we heard this from other experiences of rankings, that countries and representatives of certain countries don't like to be flagged as red or yellow. And therefore, we think this is also a statement to say this is not about better or less good. It's about the current stage of development of the quality infrastructure. And here I want to highlight that the ranking where we come to now is not that not every country should go up to the top, aspire to go up to the top of the ranking. The level of quality infrastructure needs to fit with the development of the country's economic structure and export ambitions. But it's not needed that all countries, especially smaller countries, need to rank very high, because there's also division of services in regional context and in local context, and therefore there is no need to go up for everyone. Interesting is also to have this horizontal comparison. As you see here in the ranking, we have in the higher ranked countries, let's take, as we have Emanuele with us, Italy. We have all ranks quite high. Probably Italy is in general in the 7th rank, and in standards and accreditation they are 4th in the world. But in metrology they are 16th, but they're still in the higher end of the ranking. When we're looking here, for example, to Eswatini, we have a broader diversity of the different components, and this is also interesting. How strong is the coherence of the quality infrastructure in different countries? Andrea already mentioned this. We did some correlations, and this is a big advantage what we have with the ranking, because there was a lot of critique. How can you rank something like quality infrastructure? And we say you have to be careful in the interpretation. But having the ranking, we can do correlation with other rankings, like here with exports. And what we see here nicely, that we have a strong correlation between the export on a logarithmic scale and the GQII. We'll say that countries which are strongly in exports have also strong quality infrastructure, and vice versa. The question there, and the index is giving no answer, is what is the correlation between both? What is the cause-effect relationship between both? Does a country needs to have a strong quality infrastructure to be able to export, or is it exporting strong country having a quality infrastructure because this is building itself because the companies are heading for export? I think there's also additional research needed to understand more the logic behind these correlations. Yes, with that, I want to hand over to Juan. Thank you very much.